Hi, welcome to this session. Today I will talk about a cryptographic problem related to key generation. The problem is that we need to generate multiple keys from a given cryptographic key. Okay, so we wanted to be able to use one AES key, for example, and generate multiple other AES keys. Just an example. Okay, it need not be AES key. It could be any random number. From one random number, you would like to generate lots of other random numbers. I'm just talking very informally without going into details of what a random number is more precisely. For now, that's fine. Okay, let's get straight into the approach. Cryptographers have studied this problem of deriving multiple keys from a given key. They use something called key derivation function, HKDF, key derivation function, which is a function used to derive keys from one particular key. Okay, in this video session, I'm going to talk only about one implementation that's called HKDF, which is a HMAC-based KDF. Okay, so that's the goal of this session. Okay, you will learn about how HMAC-based KDF works using concrete Java implementation. Actually, it's open source implementation, and also we'll play with some examples. Let's get started. First, I would like to show you how a KDF works at a high level and then dive into the details of the source code. So here is the technical specification document for HMAC-based KDF. It's called HKDF, as I mentioned earlier. We're not going to go through all the details line by line. Instead, I will highlight the most important parts that we need to start with. Okay. The goal is to take one key and derive multiple keys. So this HKDF actually has two modules. Okay, the two modules are we call it extract module. This is module 1, extract, and then module 2 is expand. Okay, there are two things you can imagine as function if you like. The extract function and expand function. Okay, what is the purpose of extract function? The extract function will take our input key material and give us another key that's called the pseudo random key. Okay, so informally, extract function takes an initial key and returns to the user another secret key, pseudo random secret key. Okay, let's call it PSK, some kind of a secret key we will get out from this extraction process. Okay, and then the expansion process will take the PSK and other inputs, which I will talk in a minute, will give us a list of keys. Okay, that's basically the expansion part. It's not exactly listed like in your Java list or some other programming language list. You will get a list of bytes, and from there you could choose how many bytes you wanted for each key. Okay, so that's basically the purpose of the extract and expand functions are. So more precisely, the structure of the extract function is given here. It takes so-called salt, which is some kind of a random number. It need not be secret, it's a random number. And then initial key material is what you have already as a user to start with. This will generate PRK, what they call pseudo-random key. All right. The next step is, so you can see here, PRK is computed using HMAC hash of a salt. And an expansion page will take the PRK that we just got from the HMAC of hash, and then additional information parameter, which I will explain in a minute, and how many bytes do you need. Then it will give you the expanded list of keys. Okay, that's the output keying material. Okay, that's the output keying material that you will have. All right, let's get started now. So how is this expansion function going to work? It's kind of recursive. I will first show the text description and then go through the details of the code. As you can see, suppose we would like to have, say, n bytes of key data that we would like to generate as part of the OKM. We want n byte OKM data. Okay, OKM is the output key material. So our n, I think I should, I'm sorry, I misspelled it. suppose we would like to have L bytes of output key material. The first step is to figure out how many times we need to call the function T. Okay, based on that, we can now go through what is T actually doing. T itself is basically HMAC function, a hash HMAC. It will use our key that we got from the initial extraction phase and use the previous output from the HMAC hash and additional info and a counter. It is going to repeat. You see here T0 goes as an input to the next step. T1 is going as an input to the next step and so on. So this is how we actually obtain L bytes of data. It's basically repeatedly calling the HMAC using this particular syntax that I just explained. Okay. So the benefit of this approach is that if you want to derive new keys from a given key, this HMAC-based HKDF will give you a list of keys that you could use in your application. Okay, so we can now go to code and see how it's implemented. For example, this is the source code I got from Google Think implementation of HKDF. It's pretty aligned to the specification. We can easily map it quickly. So there is only one function called compute HKDF. It combines the extract and expansion phase into this particular method. So the MAC algorithm is usually HMAC SHA-256. You can use other algorithms as well, but for this presentation, I will use HMAC-based SHA-256. Initial key material is what you have already gotten from some means, random number usually, and some salt. Salt is also another random number, need not be secret, but it has to be unique, and it need not be generated for every call. You can generate only once and use the same salt multiple times. That's perfectly fine. Info is an extra piece of information that helps you to identify the context of this particular application, for example. It can be application ID or protocol ID or anything that helps you to identify this particular usage. You know, info can be optional, it can be empty, but it's good to have non-empty info, non-empty salt. Okay, and size in terms of bytes is the number of bytes you would like to have in the resulting keys that you will get from the HKDF function. Okay, so I will not go into all the details, but I will point out some of the most important ones. So what we are doing here is that after we initialize the MAC algorithm, we are asking the MAC to generate a new key, right? You see here mac.do final of IKM will give us the PRK, the pseudo random key. And that pseudo random key is now repeatedly used to encrypt. Well, I say encrypt, basically MAC in this case. Keep on macking according to this formula that we saw in our other document here. This is the document. It shows T of 0 is 0, T of 1 is HMAC of, okay, we can copy this and see in our code easily. Okay, this is easy to see, hopefully. How do we get the first digest? We call HMAC hash of PRK. PRK is the key that we got from the first extraction phase, and T of 0 is 0, as I earlier talked about, and then info, and then followed by counter. So we can see that we have the digest, which is 0 at the very beginning, right? 0 at the very beginning, because in Java byte array, when you declare it's 0, and you have info, which is the user input, any string, okay, and then you have a counter which starts from counter value being 1. That's what exactly the standard says here, and next time the counter is incremented to 2 and so on. But if you see the structure in detail, line number 68 to 70 has exactly whatever we see here on this particular portion of the description here, like PRK, T0, info, 0x01. These things are basically captured over here. Okay, all right, that's all. So this is how the HMAC-based key derivation algorithm works. Let me now run it to you and show how we can invoke from the user's perspective. So I have this HKDF, which is basically a dump from that particular file that I just shown you. That's why I referred it here. Okay, but I can just run it in isolation. We will not walk through this code again, but we'll show you an example. This is the test case that's part of the RFC. We will use HMAC SHA-256, and here is this initial key material. It may come across not so random from the perspective of, same pair of bytes repeated, which is still random from a strict theoretical perspective, but anyway. So it's the key material, and then this is the salt. As I said, salt can be repeated. That's not a problem. It has to be random. That's the most important one. And you have the info, which is basically something that identifies the particular application. In this case, it's not something meaningful, but you can put any meaningful text there. Info need not be random. Salt has to be random. Okay. Then you expect, and for example, in this case, I'm asking HKDF to generate me 42 bytes of random data. Okay, which I will use for my keys for multiple purposes. Okay. That's all. So let's compile and run this and see what happens. Okay, so this is, if you count now how many bytes are there. Let's do that. Clear this. I'll count number of bytes. So you can see there are 84 characters. That means there are 42 bytes. These are all hex bytes. So we have 42 bytes as output, which is what we specified in our program. We said generate us 42 bytes of random numbers from this particular random number. Okay. You have to use the salt and the info for better security. The RFC talks about different security considerations. For example, if you go to the section 3, to salt or not salt, if you don't salt, it is not terribly bad, but it is better to salt. That's what this whole paragraph is trying to say. It can be fixed value, right? And can use it for multiple runs. That's not a problem. Another thing is that the info is basically also optional, right? You see here the info is optional. What it means is that you are just trying to identify which application should use this particular key, for example. Okay, so by accident, if you are using the same key, if you're using the same info across multiple applications, you may end up using the same key, which may be a problem in some cases. Therefore, by using the info, you can actually avoid some key collusion. Okay, and I will not go into the section skip or not skipped, but at this point, those are the important considerations we should keep in mind when we derive a new set of keys from the given key. Okay, all right, that's basically it, and there are more details in terms of the statistical properties and things like that, which I'm not talking in this presentation. Maybe in the future I will talk about the fine-grained details, but at this point my goal was to just cover the basics of how HMAC actually works, and explain to you how we can leverage it for multiple keys generation. Okay, but if you run it again, we will see that we are getting the same out. Why is that? Because there's no randomness in terms of the input, right? The input is fixed. We fix the key, we fix the salt, we fix the info. Therefore, HMAC-based HKDF will provide you the same key. Just for information, I want to clarify that. What is the purpose of the salt? Well, the salt itself is actually used in an interesting way. Although salt is public, salt actually becomes the key. You see here the way we construct the secret key. Salt became the key for our MAC algorithm, the HMAC algorithm, and we apply salt as a key and the actual initial key as the data. So it's a little bit confusing for some of the folks. So let me write it here. Just optional information, right? Let me clarify this. Salt is used as the key for during the extraction phase. Okay, and the initial key material is used as the data for HMAC. So this is the reason we want salt to be random. Of course, the whole thing will go out of window if your initial key material is brute forceable, right? If there are only a few entropy means uncertainty in there, then you could simply try all possible initial key materials. And since salt is public, you could eventually get all the output bytes of HKDF. So that's something worth to stress. Okay, that's all. Let me clarify this. And then here, in this particular implementation, the extraction phase and the expansion phase are lumped together, right? The extraction phase actually happening here, right? We produce the pseudo-random key by doing a MAC of our initial key material using salt, and then we expand here by repeatedly calling the HMAC, taking the output of one HMAC and feeding it to the next round and so on. And we try several times until we reach the required number of bytes. Okay, that's what this particular code is doing. Of course, you shouldn't be implementing your own HMAC. I just copied it here from Google site with a reference to the site, just for the demo purpose. Copyright and all those things are important, of course, but that's just a demo here. All right, the notion of salt can be interesting for multiple reasons. You can avoid salt if you don't like it, but it's not recommended. So you want to keep salt, as I mentioned earlier. The standard allows salt to be empty. You can see some example cases here in the test cases. For example, salt is empty here in this example, and info is also empty. So it's perfectly fine. It's better than nothing, but it's not recommended. Okay. All right. That's pretty much what I wanted to say. Thank you.